Okay, all that said, we do have some panelists, and we do have, and there I've already gone and clicked open the wrong box. I have a panelist, and a suggestion that they will share their challenges, issues, and lessons learned in conducting the census in the order of Samoa, Tonga, Kiribati, Vanuatu, and Nauru, in that order. Maybe we'll get a start. And Leota from Samoa, are you there, please, to be the first person to kick us off today?
Well, thanks, Chairman, for the opportunity to share our own experience with our population census 2021. I think I can share. I will try and share our presentation.
Appreciate
There we go.
Okay. Yep.
Can you see the presentation now?
I can see your, looks like a list of files, and I can see you've ticked the population and housing census, but I can't see the presentation as such. I can hear you talking in the room, but no, we haven't got the presentation up on screen yet. Oh, here we go. Got it now.
That looks good.
Let me create some.
Remember. If you could just move it down. Yep. And play longer the presentation slides too. Yes. End of slide.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. This is the problem with technology and people when they don't really understand how to play. Anyway, I'll be very brief on our presentation. That's more like the content of our presentation today. Basically based on the some sort of historical look back at how Samoa came about with conducting of population census, and then some challenges that we faced during the 2021, especially with the COVID lockdown and SOEs, and some new methods that we adopted, as well as the opportunities that we're looking at in the way forward. So as you may be well aware that Samoa population census is now conducting every 5 years. After the 10-year period from 1981 to 1991, that was a 10-year period at the time. And since then, Samoa have been conducting the census every 5 years. So we have the census in the beginning of November, like October 18th to the 6th of November last year. So the census date was the 6th November. So how we did it? It was a PHO approach. Person is counted at the usual place of residence in which they are living at least 3 months. How we did it? This is the first time we used the GABI to conduct the census. So it's a very new experience for Samoa. And we experienced that there is a greater assistance in doing this. Unfortunately, there are challenges like what we have faced during the census to the 2021, whereby restrictions due to the COVID SOEs. So that's why we also had some interviews using paper, especially when we go back to the callbacks as on telephones. But you know, on the other side of it, that shows the diagram of how we came about with the conduct of the census in so many years back. In terms of challenges, as you may be well aware that we had some SOE restrictions which restricted us from travel as well as lockdown. So conducting the field work was a major challenge because we had to stop the callbacks due to this lockdown. So there have been, we had a lot of adjustment to do the enumeration, making sure that we cover all the areas. So we have tried our best to do callbacks to households that were missing, as well as individuals that were missing during the enumeration period. So it was a challenge for us in the office, as well as the as you may be aware that we also had our common statistician passed away once the census was on the field. So it was also very challenging at the time. So and I'm sure all the countries who had their census during this SOE, the COVID-19 SOE restrictions, I'm sure they also experienced this sort of challenge. So in terms of in trying to fill in the gaps where data was missing, and I think this is the first time we had to do some imputation and integration with our other data sources that we make available, especially with the basic data on population that were collected during our population 2021 listing that was conducted in 2020. We also had our agriculture census conducted in 2020. So there were a lot of other information available to us that we can use to do some imputation as well as supplement the information that we have collected during the enumeration. So there was also a lot of data quality sort of assessment consistency checks that we had to go through during this time, especially when we had the lockdown. In terms of the technological influence in the period, we also had some Google Maps, so it's the technical side, data tagging. I'm sure the census people will be very familiar with this type of concepts. So one of the idea that we had adopted is using the GPS sort of as an identifier to help us identify the households to link the data with our other data. In terms of the way forward, in terms of the opportunities that we can see that will benefit us in doing the conducting the future census, there is a national ID project that we are currently working on. We're trying to, at this point in time, we're doing the legislation first, and then we work on the system, and that would complement the civil registration that we already have. So the national ID project would assist a lot, despite the risks. But I think there's more opportunities there, so that we can have the information on the population to be collected through that system. So it's one of the opportunities that we're looking at. Secondly, is the street naming address project, which will also help a lot with the finding of households and all those things. So with the availability of these addresses, which the Bureau is part of this committee working with the Ministry of Works and other ministries. So they are more like national projects, and they are very, very important. And we are looking forward to work with this project so that we can we can take things out of it, and it will eventually reduce costs, reduce burden for the respondents, and it will be a win-win situation for some should these two projects being implemented well. I think that's all from us, Kevin. We will be able to respond to some questions. We also have here our census manager. So if there's anything, I think she could she's in a better position to respond to any technical side of things. Thank you.
Thank you. That was that's fascinating. I think and nice. Grateful to all of you to be available to us to ask about that. I think what we might do is do the presentations from each country, because I think when people ask things, there may be questions and they might want to ask things to contrast. So we will definitely be asking you questions, but we might do all the little presentations, the country presentations first, and then stimulate discussion, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll stop sharing our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Viliami, you're next on my list to talk about the Tongan experience.
Thank you, Vince. How much time do I have?
Oh, well, I'm sort of hoping more sort of like 10 or 10 minutes or so, but you know,
Okay.
not too tight, if it, not half an hour, but just, but if it's 15, I'm not going to panic.
All right, I think I'm sorry that I don't have any presentation. I just talk to you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think I'll start off with thinking to Samoa. I think there are quite similar challenges in terms of COVID. But start off with the lesson learned from the census. Back in 2016, we had our first ever census using tablets, and we have something that, and during that time we normally used the school primary teachers, where some of them are senior teachers, and one of the problems is that some of the senior teachers were not quite familiar with using the technology, and some of them were recording their answers on paper and then to a separate data entry. So we decided not to follow that traditional recruitment in terms of asking the Ministry of Education to give the list of these teachers that are either teaching on those villages or come from those villages, but then open up for and looking for more young people to join the collection, with targeting more for the technology. However, I have a general, it brings also some challenges in terms of the commitment. They know exactly how to use the technology, and they are quite fast with, but then I think overall, the lesson learned is that we have to balance between those people who are committed in terms of seniority, and those people who are fresh graduate from senior schools with the know-how of using the technology. The COVID, fortunately, we finished off the census collection in December, around December, before we have our COVID cases and the epidemic, which falls in around late January. So one of the challenges that COVID is bringing to us is the mode of collection, which totally changed from physical interviewing face-to-face to listening to a voice and start to collect information. We have some few trials in some of the quick surveys that we recently completed. But as we all know, COVID brings a lot of challenges, not in terms of the mode of collection. As we all know, we would like to have accuracy in terms of our data collection. But this mode, by listening to a voice, and you don't know really who is talking, and trying to figure out whether you are going to tell the correct answers or not. So there is an investment in terms of making sure that the introduction, there is a credibility, even the tone of your voice will have to be good enough to convince your respondents to give you reliable information. But I think it's a challenge, and even though it's also added to a different stereotypes of people within different places. And not only that, but the challenge of COVID also brings the different demands, you know, like the impact of COVID to different subgroups of the population. What is the impact of COVID to women, children, disability, poor people, even to sectors like agriculture, fisheries. So these are data needs that COVID is bringing on to our table, and that is being evident in terms of knowing that there are a lot of surveys, a lot of new collections that are coming in to make sure that they can capture those impacts. That also brings some challenges in terms of technical capacities. For example, we need to relook at our sampling design. Given the fact, give an example, recently we're trying to accommodate the need from the FAO, trying to do a sampling design of characteristics of land areas that is a bit complicated. Not only the sample has to be coupled up to a huge number, but also the representativeness of the type of area. I'll give an example. I think we are moving towards this exercise is giving us a new era of trying to do area sampling. We normally do household sampling, and that's what we are quite familiar with. So the COVID brings a new dimensions that we have to upgrade our skills. This new exercise is an eye-opening for me, that the normal household sampling technique is not good enough for something that there are, let's say, for example, here in Tonga there was a volcanic eruption and there was tsunami highly affected certain areas. At the same time, the whole of Tonga was affected by the dust, and the level of dust are quite different in different areas, and different crops are having different impacts. And the setting of the people who lived in households doesn't necessarily mean where you lived is where your plantation. You can live in the urban area, but your plantation is in maybe 1 or 2. And then you have group of croppings. These are complications within the characteristics of the target sampling design that I think COVID challenges is bringing to us. So COVID is not only giving us the mode of challenge that we are going to enumerate. We have to make sure that our collections are, yes, we will not do the physical setting, but I'm thinking along the line, Vince, when Samoa is talking about trying to build in other data sets to make sure that they complement the missing. Maybe when we run a census, and during the time of census, then COVID epidemic is happening, and you have to stop the physical counting or the physical visiting of the households, but move off to the kati or the telephone. So they have to be merged swiftly in a combination mode, not just but I see one of the things that we should have done in preparation for the COVID, because we were only exposed to COVID recently, is to run a parallel collection, and maybe one of the countries will do that and have a comparison of the accuracy and maybe other features of the collection in terms of data quality. And especially in census, we make a big call to move off in 2016 from the paper collection into the technology, which we didn't go through certain steps like scanning, but we just there are big benefits that I don't have. It's not for me to discuss it, but in terms of lesson learned from using this technology and coming to this second time of using it for census, there is some aspects, maybe more specifically into the technical aspects, that leads to, like what I've given an example of sampling. We have to relook at the weighting. We have to relook at specific of those, and maybe run a trial, for example, and compare. I mean, I'll give you one of the stereotypes that is happening in parts of the island here in Tonga, like for Vava'u, for example. They tell you something, but they mean something else. You go to them and ask them, where is the Sione's household? But you're talking to Sione, but Sione directly, you go to that far corner, that's where Sione is. And you can imagine if they are telling you some typical sarcastic answers when you're physically discussing those. How about if they listen to a voice, just a voice? And one of the main error as we all know in census is trying to minimize the non-sampling error. And I think we need to document all those. I mean, we employ a lot of publicity in this time around. I was even going to visit very remote islands, asking them the period of census. I think one of the things that I have to discuss is the timing of the census, and I think that's also a challenge to us. The timing of census has to make sure that you are going to mitigate the problem with factoring in COVID. I think if COVID is really happening here in Tonga right now, there has to be a thorough discussing of the timing. For us here in Tonga, we have COVID vaccination, where some minority groups do not believe in vaccination. I mean, census is for everyone. We don't have to leave anyone behind. So, but there are some minorities that don't believe in vaccination, and this is a topic that was a hot topic here in Tonga. That is coming towards the census. People tend to think government don't force us to be vaccinated. Government is also running the census. So we have a big publicity, and also the fact that there was election. Government election was done on the 18th of November, but that also our census night is the 30th of November. Some people don't like what government is doing in every country. There's no one single government will make sure that they all win the hearts of everyone else, even though they are a good government. So this timing was really crucial because people rejected vaccination, some of them because of their belief or whatever. People dislike government for whatever reason they are. But when the enumerators comes into their house, these people see this is government initiative. We don't want to be enumerated. We don't want government to. This is something new to our Pacific Islands, but it's becoming evident now. People are becoming individualistic. So there is a lot of call, in my view, for a big campaigning for the public value of statistics, and also the minimization of sampling, non-sampling error to be documented. I'll give you an example, Vince, one more, because I think I'm running out of time. I have a campaign to the political leaders. The political commitment towards statistics is very important in our region. And one of the things that we know for sure, some few households didn't want to be enumerated. And there are strategies that government now are using for mobilizing aids for poor people. So I've asked Minister of Finance, why not, if anyone is not in the system, they should not be accounted for any beneficiary. Like, for example, there is a COVID fund for households who are poor. So some of the few households who are not in the system, they were stopped to get this benefit because they were asked to be in the system of our census. So they calling up and say, oh William, we wanted you to enumerate our household because we were not in the census. I said, why? We didn't think that census is important, but now the Minister of Finance and the Finance Ministry doesn't allow us to collect our beneficiaries because we are not in the record. And this is a milestone for us, Vince, that these are things that we're now collecting them, and we are picking those people, and they say, now we really know census is important. And I think this is something that we should keep on campaigning, because the dynamics and the changes that are happening in our environment, especially COVID, is having an impact in our collection. Thank you, Vince. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Viliami. As always, there'll be plenty of food for thought, what I'm sure you'll get questions about when we move into the where the period of wider discussion. The next country on my list is Kiribati. And Arista, are you there to talk to us about your experience?
Yes, Vince, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yes, I can. Welcome. Please tell us.
I'd like to share my screen, but I'll try my best to play around with this. Can you see it?
Not yet, but it tells me that you're sharing your screen, so I'm hopeful that we may yet. All we can see is a black screen. But it does tell me that I'm.
Resume.
Ah, that looks good. We've started to be able to see your presentation. It's not in presentation mode, but we can see the, there we go.
Good morning and good afternoon and probably good evening to everyone. I can start now, Vince, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, just to introduce a bit of the situation in Kiribati. You know, we had this census population in 2020, and it was a bit before the COVID hit our shores. So in spite of that, we still we still were affected by the, the impact of COVID from the overseas, countries. So I'm going to share what we have in our challenges, and amazingly, there are also I would call it positive impacts. To be precise. And I think that's about it for my presentation. So this is my outline. It's just the challenges that affect the census activity, some positive impacts, like I said, and just a conclusion of those two. We have, we have a bit of a problem just to, the operation of the census is quite affected from the, the shortage of spare parts for planes, like I put on the screen there. It discontinued a bit of operation between the islands. Our islands are a bit scattered, so we have a bit of problem there. We also have to change our plans because some of our islands are in the line islands. They are a bit far from the Kiribati group, so we have to transport some of our staff earlier than normal. And they've been staying in the line islands for about 8 months, and they travel by ship, by the way. So they have to be there so that they can contact the census. It's like we set up a small office just for the line islands and finished group. We also have some trainers that stranded on the islands when we send them out to conduct training. And then we like visit from the TA that we already planned. Also our capacity building in, or probably like hands-on training were not possible. And then the major thing is we have to seek some extra funding so that to complete the census activities. I want to go to the next page here. This is my second page, and unexpectedly, like I said, there are some positive, I'm just calling it a positive impact of COVID. But the real thing is, it's also a good timing that we adopt that technology, because you know, it would be very difficult if we were using paper, given the distances and you know, the lack of the smooth traveling between islands. So Gabby was very efficient in that, you know, in that period when we carry out the enumeration. It's also, you know, increased, it gives us the opportunity to increase the usage of technology and communication. We use all means of communication, including messengers of Facebook, which is really, you know, amazing. And then we also have there are other things that we find out, and that is, it gives some of our confidence. We just realized that we have staff confidence that, you know, we didn't even know that we have. So it makes us, you know, like come out of the shell, I would say that. And then it's also create like a new norm that we begin to, you know, to adapt now that we can work remotely with TAs. It's also a good thing that they can come and travel to Kiribati, but during this period, I think it opens another, you know, pathway to, you know, to do the work remotely. So if I conclude all my my presentation, well, the result of the COVID-19 is, to us, is just a big increase in the budget for the census. And well, the opportunities, I would say that we have to, you know, we use the local technical capacity to their maximum. We demonstrate the confidence, you know, of the NSO staff that we have. Yeah. And we have, you know, it seems to bring us a bit, you know, a bit closer to work together. That's like a good news. It might not be a good news from the COVID-19, but the effect, the impact is, it's not always negative. It gives us a bit confidence in our work too. And that's about it. I'm just concentrating on these two, the challenges and the opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fascinating and incredibly encouraging to hear about the sense of bonding in the office and the confidence in your team to execute all this work. That sounds like a great theme that other people may be, when we start talking, asking questions, other people might want to understand a little more. So that's fantastic. Okay. Can you stop sharing?
Okay.
Okay. So the next, Vanuatu, Ben, are you there to talk about the experience of Vanuatu?
Vince, it's actually Jimmy, but I don't see Jimmy online.
Oh, okay. So we don't have a representative from Vanuatu. Okay, so the next person I had on the list I was looking at was Lindsay from Nauru.
I'm here.
Ah,
Hi.
great.
Thank you, Vince.
Great to hear from you, Lindsay.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if Michael can upload the PowerPoint that I sent them earlier today. So I
Okay,
can,
yeah, I'll just bring that up.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see. As everyone, does anybody see this?
It's yeah. No, I can
Slides.
see it. I think we can all see it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael or Andrea. Hi, everyone. Just on behalf of the Nauru Bureau of Statistics, my name's Lindsay. I'm the coordinator for the census that we just completed field work on last year in October 2021. Yeah. So the advantage with our census is unlike other Pacific Island countries, it's only one island. We don't have many islands like other Pacific Islands. Just shared the experience earlier where I heard the challenges with their transportation they require. Can you move to the next slide? So I'll just go through the points that been shared through the email. Firstly, the timing and with the operations, I'll just quickly go through. We started the census listing in May, June. It was just a 2 months listing. We only recruited 4 to 6 participants just to do this listing. And then after that, we had the training. The training for the actual census was in October, so 2 weeks prior. So thank you. That time was TA assisted by Toga, Scott, and Luis. Luis was the GPS expert. So it was through virtual mode. We had to do it, the training through virtual mode. And the other thing I just want to mention there, because most of the equipments we don't get it from here locally. We just need to procure them, buy them and procure from overseas. So actually it arrived. There was only 2 flights a week operating between here and Brisbane. So because of the COVID situation, travel restriction, but actually the equipments and they managed to arrive before time, before the actual census. So the census enumeration period actually was 2-3 weeks. It took 2-3 weeks based on the timeline, but it actually, there's some delays that we came across, we experienced. So it almost completed most part of the field work on the early December. So can we move to the next? I'll just next slide, please. So the challenges, the delays that caused the field work was challenges that we experienced. One of the major is the delay of preparing or recharging the top-up credit for tablets, because of every week that's when we need to recharge and credits. So we have problems with receiving and processing the payments, especially with the service provider and also the treasury department. So this causes us a lot of major delay to us. The enumerators have to wait, especially those unemployed that are doing this work as part-time. They can't really can't afford to pay themselves to top up their tablets. So so we try to resolve this issue, and then some of the enumerators, they are able to pay their own credit, to top up their own credit. And the other thing is myself as a coordinator, I was able to, assist the others, those that can't afford to top up themselves. So, and then at least I provide the daily credit, top up credit, and then just claim the reimbursement later. And move to the next slide, please, Michael. Oh. Another challenges that was causing the delays. We faced shortage of enumerators since the beginning. We have the successful applicants, and then along the line, some of them, because we required 50, at least 50 enumerators for 15 allocated EAs. So they were short of 11. We fall short of 11 enumerators. And not only that, during the field work, the actual field work, 3 or 4 of the enumerators, they decide to pull out, or some of them, they were incompetent, so we have to let them go. They have some reasons, negative reasons or excuses. So, but we still managed to recruit some not many, but some replacement for the enumeration, to do the enumeration. But the problem with that is the training, because they missed the training, and we have to do a very quick training, a short training for those replacement enumerators. And then, so yeah, the way we resolve that issue is we have to wait for those other enumerators that completed their EAs early. After they complete their EAs early, we have to ask them if they can continue and do the other vacant EAs that haven't been started yet. So those are the challenges that we faced, causing delays of the enumerators. Move to the next slide, please. Okay, I'll just quickly go through this. At that time, the challenges resulting from COVID-19, at that time, Nauru was COVID-free during that census last year. But this time, as we're speaking, we recently have 3 cases of COVID, just new 3 cases on island. And so it was recovered here. But at the time last year, I know during the census was COVID-free. But still, we did the training through virtual mode. And we have to go through the training through virtual mode with SPC, and some challenges that we faced with the training through virtual mode is with the quality of projector. with the slides, some of the font size need to be, not really clear. So we just prefer to just listen to what's been delivered through the audio. But actually the slides were showing, but some of the fonts may not too clear. And even the sound system, those things that we tried to improve that time, we have to hire a sound system to include it in during the training. The other thing is, like I said earlier, Nauru was COVID-free during the census. So the enumeration approach was face-to-face mode. So that was okay. But the thing is, we faced during on the field was some other surveys that not related to census were also on the field. So there was some surveys doing other things for other departments, different projects. Like example, a child protection survey was also on the field that time, and so the enumerators happened to clash in the same building or same household, and so it's a fatigue for the household as well. So it's a survey fatigue for the households, and some households they don't wish to respond because they said we have been interviewed earlier by some other different, and we are getting tired of this kind of you people of something like that. We're getting tired of surveys almost asking the same question, the names and the dates of birth, those kind of same questions. So yep. And the other thing is, even though it was a COVID-free during that census time, but the enumerators we also budgeted to carry protective items such as face shield, face mask, those kind of things, gloves, sanitizers. We still budgeted to include them as they're part of their possession while on the field in case we're not sure what there might be positive cases might arise. So yeah, that's the challenges may relate to COVID-19 during the throughout the fieldwork census. And can you move to the next slide, please? Yes. So yep, we're almost finished. I'm just following the points that I shared through email earlier yesterday from Michael Sharp. The next steps we just at the moment is we just completed the data editing process. Not really completed, but the GPS errors from our side. We just been communicating with Tonga and Luis, because there are still GPS errors, like GPS duplicates, something like that we've been experiencing. So these are the part of the data editing process that we were trying to make them correct just recently, like I think 3-4 weeks ago, let's say last month in March, end of March. And I think the next step will be data processing. Maybe, I don't know, the system that SPC will be using. I think it's built in. I'm just sure that Tonga will assist us with that editing with data editing process from their side, like to check with duplicate cases, or I don't know, some other verification. And the next thing we're waiting after that, after data editing process, we'll be expecting to get or receive the release of preliminary tables, the tabulations. So those are the first results that we expecting to receive, and then we'll disseminate with stakeholders or key departments if they wish to start using those at the earliest. And after that, I think the processing to prepare the census full analysis report follows after that. And what else? Dissemination of full report. I'm not sure yet, but according to, I think, the SPC calendar, the process after completing field work, I think it's something like 6 months after that, the full report, preliminary full report should be ready by then, 6 months after the completion of field work and data editing process. I was just following that. That's my timeline. So it's around about June, July, but maybe after that, the full report, I don't know, I'm not sure yet, but I'll just discuss this with the SPC further. And along with the data utilization workshop, data utilization workshop we did in the last census in 2011. So it's very useful that we'll be conducting, we proposed this again for this 2021 census round when it's time to dissemination, census dissemination. And yep, next slides, please. I think the next slide will be the last slide that I want to quickly go through and share. It's just a lesson learned from most of the experience that we went through. Just waiting for the slides to show up, and then I'll yeah. Actually, I'll just talk through it and while we're waiting. The lessons learned that I can remember, I can recall is compared to 2011 census, our last census, we have new additional modules and questions this time. So there's a lot of, there are more questions and modules this time compared to last census. So we have the agriculture. This time we included the agriculture and fishing module, and the food insecurity module, that's the FICE. And we also included climate change questions and environment questions within the housing module. And those are the lessons learned that I also want to share as well. And the other thing is that the manual mapping, GPS map. In 2019, the first time we engaged to using CAPI system to use it for survey, we also did use GPS mapping in 2019 mini census, but this time they included Luis and the team. They included the manual mapping, because I think manual mapping is important. It can improve the GPS mapping using Google, or I don't know, through Google, because sometimes the accuracy might be different. Manual mapping is plotting the waypoints accurately, like because you're doing it manually instead of using the satellite source. So that's another thing we learned, new thing that we learned compared to last using the CAPI system. And the other thing we learned, and it's also important, is I think I mentioned it earlier, training mode, the virtual training using virtual mode. This is the first time that we conducted big, because there were 50, 60 people, and the training was conducted through virtual mode. And we needed the Wi-Fi connection should be, the quality of Wi-Fi connection should be good. Not only that, the venue, the limits of venues here during that time, we only used there was a 2 weeks training. The first week we were doing on a different venue, and the second week we did it in another different venue because of unavailability, and then the other place is available. So not only that, it's a high cost of venue. It's another thing we experienced that we should factor in a budget for next. So yep, we can maybe we can. I'll just wait for. I think that's about it from my side, and I'll just wait for any answers for Q&A. I can, if they addressed other questions you wish to. Thank you, Vince and Michael, and the others.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lindsay. Thanks for such a thorough description of what happens. I was interested in all the issues around the managing your field force, and indeed I saw, and indeed the fact that you had some problems with overlap between surveys and some response burden questions, and I see a peer has expanded upon that a little in the chat. Conscious that we also have our colleagues from the Cooks, Marshall Islands and the Solomons on the call, and I wonder if hearing the experiences that we've just heard had prompted anyone from any of those countries to want to talk about their experiences.
Hello, Vince. It's Scott Keju from EPSO, from the
All right.
So
yeah,
tell us. We're ready. Let me just show my. Unfortunately, I don't have the presentation to share with you today. I'll just briefly go through our experiences during the census. So first of all, thanks to our colleagues from SPC, the technical assistant from, would like to recognize Michael, Donga, and Scott and Luis. Thank you guys for helping us with the training and all that. We started our census last year, August 23, 2021. We, after virtual training, 2 weeks after the listing, and we were using the de facto methodology, and this was our first time to use the CAPI program to do the interview. And as you all know, RMI is still in a COVID-free country, and even though we're still COVID-free, but we still have some challenges. So I'll just go through what we experienced. I think the first challenge we have here in the RMI is the isolated. When you conduct the census, you have to deal with planning and scheduling of the flights going between urban areas to the rural areas. That was our first challenge. The second challenge we face is the internet connection in the outer islands. So having to hear from other countries, from Nauru, yeah, we also face those type of challenges. We need to be on top of preparing for going out to the fields and make sure that our tablet is fully charged and we have those interview ready. So especially the maps. So I think that is those are the three main challenges we face during the census enumeration. The second thing, the other challenges that we face is visiting the households. Some people refuse to be enumerated, maybe because they hate the government or they're just getting tired of answering questions from other surveys. Also, I think the timing of the census was also a challenge because right after we did the household listing, we jumped into the training. So that was really a big challenge there because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare the household listing in order to conduct the actual census. So, and what else? I'm like I said, I'm sorry that I didn't prepare the PowerPoint for today. It's just we're still working on all the rejection, all those missing households that we didn't interview. But yeah, this is something that I really want to share with you all and hope to learn more from you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions if later on if we going to the discussion part. So thank you, and thank you, Vince.
Okay, that's great. That's interesting to hear some themes being reinforced around some uncertainty about the attitude to government and response burden, and of course it's the realities of travel is something that it's easy to forget about when when I'm sitting here. So thank you very much. That was very informative. Now I've wondering if either if anyone from the Cooks or the Solomon Islands wants to share anything.
Yeah, Kirana. Sorry, we just missed the call out for the Cook Islands. This is Lua from the Cook Islands.
Welcome, Lua.
Thank you, Vince. Apologies, our camera is not really working. Our connection here is very slow, so I'll just have to speak on the mic.
We can hear you very clearly.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for the presentations. It's very interesting to see all the different challenges and just the general information on the census being done in different countries. As for the Cook Islands, I'll just give you a quick brief information on our census. We are still in the active. at the moment, data cleaning and so forth. So the timing for our census is supposed to be, the census night is supposed to be the 1st of December 2021. Pre-enumeration was supposed to be 2 weeks before that, and then the post-enumeration covers the 2 weeks after that, leading into Christmas. Come across some delays due to the legal side of things, trying to get the QR to do the proclaim our census to start. And in doing so, we lost quite a lot of our enumerators that showed interest before that. So they couldn't wait for the training to start because of that, and they had other things to do. So I think we lost more than 20 of our enumerators during that delay period. And that was one of the challenges, was the number of enumerators we had for this census. Compared to the 2016 census, we were down by 50%. So we had to, and then going through the enumeration time, some of the enumerators dropped out. So some by poor performance and some through availability. They had other plans already planned for during Christmas, pre-Christmas trips. Yeah, so that became a challenge for us. General challenges, maybe timing of the census for us was too close to Christmas. With the borders opening to New Zealand, it was it's a lot easier for us to plan to travel to New Zealand for Christmas, do some shopping for Christmas and then come back. So that was our enumerators gone and come back, and the movements of people with households went from occupied to unoccupied. We had holiday homes that went from private households to holiday homes. So there was a lot of movements in the population, especially with the tourists not being that much in the country. So that was one of the challenges. So maybe the timing of the census needs to be looked at. Mode of collection, we did focus mainly on CAPI. We also prepared just in case there was a need for paper, but we ended up just, for Rarotonga alone, we ended up just going with the paper because some households were just not too keen to be interviewed face to face. So they preferred paper being left with them, the forms. So that was all right. We had to deal with that on the spot. So we got forms printed. We prepared ourselves with a questionnaire in a paper form. We were able to drop the forms off and then to collect them later for data entry. So I just want to mention a quick mention to Tonga and SPC for giving us another option for data entry in doing that online. Because before we was just the CAPI, we just had to use the tablet, but then we were able to do an online data entry using the computer. So that was another part of our work in the office for those paper forms. To be able to do that in the office is to do the data entry on the computer. Yeah, so that's another challenge for us, was the paper forms that come back. We had to do a lot of follow-ups because of the quality of the data coming back from the forms. Yeah, so we didn't really have, it wasn't as straightforward as we would like. And then the other biggest challenge was our listing. We depended very much on the household listing that was done by the Emergency Management Cook Islands in 2020. And it was done for the COVID-19 response. we depended very much on it, and then we ended up, having to go through a lot of missing GPS points, missing houses. The version of the map was quite old, so a lot of new houses weren't included in that listing. So we've had to include that as well as we go. And that's about the general challenges. As for the COVID-19 challenges, I don't think we had much challenge due to COVID. We didn't have any cases then. We didn't have a lockdown until now. Oh, now it's just isolation because of testing positive. But that's our fault in opening the border, so can't complain. But in saying that, we didn't have any challenges from COVID-19 with the census. So it's mainly our general challenges that we faced, and we can come up with some solutions for that. Yeah, that's about it. Next steps for census activities. Yeah, we're doing data cleaning at the moment, and then later on with data processing for the 2021 census. Lessons learned. Well, better planning for the future. One of the biggest challenges, sorry, I missed this one. We ran a rapid assessment survey with 4 rounds into end of 2020, 2021. So planning the census and carrying out the 3 rounds of the rapid assessment survey wasn't so a smart plan for us because of the size of our office, but we wanted to do it and we went through with it. So we all learned from what we've done in the last year. So the next census, we will learn to plan better and make sure we don't have anything else a year before the census, so we can do a proper household listing and proper planning for the census. I think that's it from us. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great to hear from you. Thank you for sharing. So open invitation, if there's any other countries that are on the call that would like to share their experience, just yell out now, because it's I think it's every country has added something to the conversation and the diversity of what's gone on. Okay, I'm well, look, if somebody, the discussion, okay, so look, so now we've heard a lot, so I'm very open to anybody who wants to ask questions of any of the countries or make some observations, some more generic observations. And then we might move on. I know we've got some people who've got some interesting things lined up to just make interventions about, but I suppose in the first instance, I'm interested in people who want to reflect on the information we've had or ask further questions of any of the people who've been kind enough to share their experiences. I'm trying to get a sense of if I'm going to be able to see hands or anything like that.
Hello, Vince.
Hi, Lindsay, you want to say something?
Yes, actually I have a question from other participants or from other NSOs. I'm just wondering about the language barrier. What are the experience with communicating approach with the Chinese? especially with, I'm just wondering, of course, in our case, we didn't have anybody to recruit with that expertise that able to speak Mandarin or Cantonese. Yep, that's it. That's my question.
Okay. Well, that's a very interesting question. Is there anybody from any country who'd like to share experiences about that? Williami?
Thanks, Vince. I think we are in our Pacific Islands these days. We are very highly communicate with China, and Chinese language has been taught in our some of our high schools, and scholarships are. People are going to China for scholarships, and there are typical local people who know how to speak Chinese. So we employed Chinese enumerators, Chinese-speaking enumerators, and they are Tongans who can speak the language. However, the Chinese population here in Tonga really know how to speak Tongan, and they have Tongan names. Only when you go as a tax officer to their shops and retail shops, and they say that they don't understand Tongan, but they are very fluent with Tongan. So most of our Chinese were enumerated in Tongan, with some exceptions of those who were not Tongan speaking, but they are referred to some of our Chinese speaking enumerators that we also employed. Thank you.
Thanks, Williami. That's very interesting. Was there anybody else who wants to respond to Lindsay?
Can I?
Of course.
This is Kion, not Kion, from Palau.
Sorry.
Good morning from Palau. We're in the midst of our oceans conference is just started today. So Koror is quite packed with a lot of people from all over the Pacific. And to respond to the question on Chinese-speaking people, like Tonga, we do have Chinese-speaking locals who went to school in Taiwan. So we were able to employ them. But we also did, not for the census, but our last survey, we did different kinds of questionnaires, one in Chinese, one in English, Japanese, to try and accommodate for these people. And if I may speak for Palau's issues on during the census.
Of course, please do.
I highly recommend not doing any census during those times. It was a bad time. A lot of our people went to Taiwan for medical checkups into the hospital in Taiwan. Some went off island to Hawaii and USA. And they got locked down. They weren't able to come back to Palau. And then we had repatriation flights that flew our people out of some local foreign residents back to their Taiwan and China. So we lost quite a good portion of our population. We did our household listing in 2019. We reached almost, we went over 18,000. But during our census, we dropped back down lower than 2015. It's 17,600. It's like a rough estimate for now, but I think that will stick with 17,614, I think. So, and we ran into a lot of issues with households refusing because they were afraid of the contracting the virus. And some households had their the adult respondents weren't at home. They were off island. So we weren't able to enumerate the households. There were people there, but they didn't want to answer the questions. So we have run into a lot of issues, and we had enumerators resign. So we had to kind of restructure and then go back. So we're able to finally complete the census after going back to check on the households that we missed and completed in 2021. So now we're working with Tonga and SPC to on the edits for the tables. So I highly recommend not doing. If we have any more of this pandemic, don't do a survey or census during those times. It's not a good idea. Thank you.
So I appreciate you're very busy, and thank you for taking the time to share your experience. That's useful for all of us. I was appears mic isn't working. Okay, look, I was other reflections or people want to ask questions. I see that just looking in the chat, there was quite a lot of discussion. Oh, it appears working again. There was quite a lot of discussion about the management of address information and using GPS codes, which Samoa referred to, I think, as a linking variable in terms of doing their imputation, and clearly, and there seemed to be some very active discussion. Viliame and Upia doing a lot of explanation. Is there anything about that discussion that might be worth people elaborating on or discussing further? Everybody can have a read in the chat, of course.
Thank you, Vince. I want us to. I think this is one of the needed data applications. If I may say, for our nation here in Tonga. Like we need a proper address to locate household. As we all know how important home addresses are for various reasons. And I've been advocating for the home address here in Tonga. One of our problems is the street's name. No names for streets, and how our geographical locations are being structured are not in a way that we have the island divisions, and then from the island divisions we have districts, and then we have villages, and that's our normal geographical locations. And then with us here at Stats office, we then have the enumeration area or the census block, and now we have census unit. However, there are other boundaries like the constituencies. Constituencies are running into estates owned by nobles and running into places where owned by government. So there's a little bit of problem there. So the constituencies, let's say, for example, one of the villages, a village may have belong to two different separate constituencies. So the town officer will have two roles. One, it will look after those people that belong to that constituencies, and so there's a problem with our geographical locations. But we need the need for home address is very appealing these days. Not only for delivery of mail, but we all know, and I remember, Vince, that we have we have discussed in the UNICEF is promoting disability, and like, for example, the evacuation. Those people with disability should be located, especially in the coastal area, in terms of evacuation purposes. That should be identified. I'll give you an example. One of the church building was being on fire, and this is a church building, and also they have a hall. The distance between the fire station and this place is within 1 kilometer. So when this church building was burned, we hear the noise of the truck that is coming, but there are so many roads that comes to this place. They keep on coming. The church was all collapsed, and then it comes to the hall, all collapsed before the fire people arrived. It seems like they are coming within maybe 20 or 30 kilometers to the site. That means that we are losing a lot of expenses in terms of saving houses, or even saving lives if people are there. Once, if they know the correct home address, they could save life. They could save money or whatever. So it definitely is a need for us to have a home address, and it's no longer the type that where Offa and them were referring. If you go to that place, you go to a mango tree, and that mango tree, after that mango tree, you find the location. But when those people are coming on the road, they find that there was no mango tree because it was cut off the other day. So home address is, I think, even though there are complexities in different islands, but I think it's a need to hold. I think 3 words is an application, but I think with the census we can locate also the head of household, the dwelling, and then we can be of useful for many applications in terms of our GPS location that we collected in census. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, Viliami. Well, I see we've got a question in the chat from Edith. We can see they wanted to ask our colleagues from the Cook Islands if they could share their experience with conducting their population census at the same time as the agriculture census, and what were the benefits and challenges. So could our colleagues from the Cooks respond to that, please?
Thank you, Vince, and thank you, Edith, for the question. Well, we started off working really well with agriculture, doing this as a combined census, but then as we went along, we sort of went sideways. So while we're working on the population census, we were sort of like providing the list out of what we collected to agriculture, but they're supposed to follow us with their listing that we provide them from the census, identifying the households that are involved in agriculture activities, but we weren't able to continue that work due to many reasons. So now the agriculture census is still going, and we are in a different stage now of our census, the population census. So to answer that question, there was a lot of challenges, benefits. Yeah, there's not as much benefit to work on, to say about the combination of the 2 censuses. So it's something that we're looking forward to work through in solving in the future of the population census comparison or working alongside the agriculture census. Thank you.
Thanks. And I see we've got some information about Palau's experience in the chat too. So
may I just?
Of course, Pierre.
I think similarly with the Cook Islands, we've yet to see the benefits of including other modules in our census. As Lindsay mentioned, we included a module for agriculture, a fishing module, advice, food security module, climate change, environment. Now, because it became a big question there, so we're still thinking about the reality of what our timeline will be when we get to disseminate all that information. So perhaps we may like to suggest along the similar lines that Cook Islands did and start publishing our earliest data, which probably will be on the census material, and then start developing stagger the publications as they become available or the analysis becomes available. Because as I mentioned yesterday as well in the closed meeting, we may need to engage some of the local experts here in those particular areas, since our office do not possess all those knowledge or all that expertise, specifically on climate change, environment, and fisheries type of stuff, or agriculture. So we may need to engage with other agencies or other departments to help us with the analysis or looking at the data themselves and identifying the gaps or the relevance to the information to do analysis, do that kind of analysis. But as Lindsay said, we're looking towards probably perhaps the end of March, maybe, or end of this month, for the tabulations to come out. And that's when we get to share it with our colleagues in other departments, the relevant information that is related to their activities and their work plans. And then we can see the benefits of putting together two big surveys and undertaking them in one go. But as I spoke to Mike, some of the components here are just spot check sort of things. Our actual heist is I think it's scheduled for this year, I believe, or next year. But at least we'll get some indicators that will fill whatever requirements the SCG has in terms of reporting. And with the coming census on the, what's it called, the UNICEF one, the mix survey, then we'll have the opportunity to look at the indicators that we do collect from the census, from these surveys now as a spot check, as well as the mix survey, and see our position in reporting back to the SDGs. I think that's where the government focus is at the moment. That's where planning's focus is at the moment, and also the other departments as well. Is along the lines of reporting back to the SDGs. So we'll see with that kind of combination how much we have actually achieved. Thank you.
Thanks, Apia. It does sound like if this is something where people sounds like they're waiting to see how it turns out. So we'll be able to have a chance to review that experience after we've all seen how it pans out and had a chance to reflect on it. That sounds important. Now, I can't see anybody else wanting to put their hand at the moment. So look, I was going to, in organising the session, Mike has clearly done a good job of anticipating some of the general themes. Sorry, because what I have in front of us is a list of people more from a provider perspective who were ready to make some interventions around particular themes. And I think this, having listened to some of the discussion, this might be a good time to invite some of them to make those interventions Oh, sorry. Have I missed Elizabeth trying to talk? My apologies. Apologies. I was about to launch into something else. Elizabeth, do you want to say something? Oh, doesn't look like it. Okay. Sorry if I got that wrong. So I was going to ask, given the list I had here, that I see Toga was set to make a intervention about remote technical support. And we've had a bit of discussion about this. It's been identified an issue by several countries. Toga, would you like to share what you're going to tell us, please?
Yeah, thanks, Vince. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can see my presentation.
Yes,
Thank you so much for the previous presenters who have done a wonderful job, very interesting information. And for me, I'm going to present on from the point of view of a technical assistance provider, assisting the countries in their data collection using KP systems. We've also have challenges in the past 2 years, 3 years during the COVID that we were not able to travel. And I'm going to share some of the highlights and the challenges we also faced while we are providing remote technical assistance to the Pacific Island countries. Part of our technical support, which is the normal support that we always provide, whether we are in country or remotely. But for the past 3 years, we've been providing this technical support remotely from here in Numea on questionnaire designs, assisting the countries in making sure that they have the relevant questions in their questionnaire, following the standard Pacific model questionnaire for census, as well as the HICE standard questionnaire, and likewise for the other surveys that they conduct as well. We also provide technical support, remote technical support on the technologies that are being used. Some countries' presentation mentioned about the tablet procurement. This is always a challenge when there were no flights happening, so they have to procure the tablets very early because of the shipment and making sure that they have the right specifications, organizing with the suppliers to ensure that they ship the tablets in time for the countries to start their data collection. Also provide support on the tablet once they have it, the configuration of those tablets, the installation of the applications and setting it up and making sure they are working properly and are connected to the server, so they are able to synchronize the completed interviews during the collection. And also, we provide support on the survey solution server that we normally set up. This service used to be provided by the World Bank, but now they've stopped the service. So us in SPC, we are providing this service as well for the countries to be able to synchronize their completed interviews to the server. Also technical support on the training of enumerators and supervisors. This has been mentioned by most of the countries. So we had to do remote training through the various platforms that are available, and also assist the countries in the preparation of their training materials, the presentations, the interviewer and supervisor manuals, and also the map from our GIS specialist. Also, we also provide remote technical support on the field work itself when they are out in the field, and we are providing support remotely on the data that has been collected and the field operations. The use of the monitoring dashboard, some data management systems, generating reports from the server, and monitoring of the household locations using the maps and the GPS. I'm not going to go into detail on this because my colleague Scott will present more on the monitoring dashboard and the data management system. And lastly, the technical support on the data processing. Once we completed the data collection, then we provide support on the data editing and the generation of the tabulations for their reports. So that's basically what we have provided during the pandemic. It's all done remotely, and I'm going to share with you some of the highlights and the challenges that we face during this time. Just before that, I have countries listed here that we have provided remote technical support in KP, and most of the presenters are the ones that have done their census: Kiribati, Vanuatu, Tonga, Armai, Cook, and Nauru. And this year we have started with the PNG household survey, SDS, which is the socio-demographic economic survey. And for HICE, we also assisted Tonga in the HICE on 2020 and 2021. Other collections, it was on Cook, rapid assessment surveys. They mentioned about the 3 rounds that they are doing. They've completed 3 rounds, and hopefully they'll start on the 4th round after the census. And we also did a Tuvalu listing last year, which has just been completed. So for this year, hopefully that the border will reopen. Otherwise, it will also remote support for Tokelau and US censuses, and also the Tuvalu long form census, which this is one initiative that we are doing to integrate the population census and the HICE together into one collection. So hopefully that the border will open and we'll be able to provide the support in country. Otherwise, it will still be remote technical support. And we have provided server support for some of the agriculture censuses for Niue, the current Cook Islands agriculture census, and likewise for Wallis and Futuna, and a couple of education surveys by our education unit. So what are the highlights? I guess the biggest highlight when you are providing support, and this is mentioned by Arista from Kiribati, building capacity to the staff of NSO to work independently, to undertake the planning and organizing activities on their own while we are providing support remotely. I think that's the biggest highlight, developing the staff to be take the lead in all the activities, the planning, the training, the field operations, and we support them remotely from here in SPC. They are able to organize themselves on the field operations in terms of the team structure, the composition, how many interviewers in each team, and the various workloads that they need to achieve, the number of households that they need to interview in a day, and making sure that they have full coverage of their designated enumeration areas. They were also able to train, do the training, and we connect from here, and we just guide them and assist them in the training, but they take the lead in the training of enumerators. And I see that this really developed and improved their knowledge with regards to the questions, the questionnaire, on why they are asking the questions, the kind of indicators that needs to be collected, the definitions of some terms, and the classifications with regards to occupation and industry, and most importantly, the understanding the KEPI processes, what is involved, and the methodologies. So that is the highlights of providing that support remotely, that the staff of the NSO are able to build the capacity and develop their expertise and knowledge in doing things on their own. They are able to set up the tablets. We just have to send them the instructions, and they set up the tablets, configure them, and make sure that they are ready to be used during the field work. And through the dashboard, I also see that it improves their understanding of the data that has been collected, especially when you are seeing the data live every day. They are able to download the data, and they fully understand the data, the errors that are coming out, if there's any issue or in the consistency of the data. So it helps them to fully understand getting the data live from the server. And also in the field operations, they are doing the monitoring as well as the verification of the data. All the errors that are generated from the servers, from the dashboard, from the data management systems, this is shared to them, and they are able to transfer this information to the respective teams in the area, and they are able to verify the data to improve the data quality of the information that they are collecting. And also, the last point is we see that it's very effective with the countries who had already done a KP collection. This really helps when we are providing assistance remotely for Kiribati, for Vanuatu, for Nauru, because they've done KP collections before, so they have that capacity, some understanding of the system, and it really works well when we are providing remote support, that they are able to organize themselves and take the lead in some of the work that we are trying to assist remotely. For the challenges, I guess the first one is that we don't have any control on what is happening on the ground. Yeah? And this is why we rely heavily on the NSO staff, the census team, to take the lead and monitor and organize the activities. As I mentioned earlier, it's really easy with working with countries that have used the KP before. So it takes a bit of time for the countries that they are doing the CAPI first time, that we have to guide them and lead them in some of the work. But otherwise, since we are away from the country, we have no control on what is happening on the ground. In terms of the training, the virtual training, for those countries that we did the training remotely, some of the presentations they mentioned about the internet connections. This is a challenge. It's really hard when you are doing the training remotely and the internet goes off and on, and we really have to bear with this. So the internet connections is a challenge. Also during the training, sometimes we have no control on the attendance of the participants. And again, we rely on the NSO staff, the census team, to make sure that all the participants are in the training room while we are doing the training. As you all know, we are in the Pacific. Everything works on Pacific time. When we start at 8, surely we'll start at 9 o'clock. Tea breaks for 15 minutes, it'll go for 1 hour. So we have no control when we are on remote training. And we have to ask the NSOs to make sure that they are attending the trainings. Yeah? Knowledge transfer is a challenge when interpretation is done by the NSO. When we are doing the training, then the census staff, they have to interpret what we have mentioned, and we don't really know what has been interpreted. And we have no control of what is being trained when the NSO is taking the lead in the training. Some of the countries, they want to do the training themselves, so we have no control on what is being trained. And we have to spend more time on clarifications and repeating the presentations due to this misunderstanding. And another issue is on the troubleshooting. With technology, there's always going to be issues. Troubleshooting the tablets, whether if they don't work, if people are not able to synchronize, they lost the application. These are the things it's really challenging to fix when you are not in the country. Some misunderstanding or miscommunication on the advice that we sent. This is always a challenge, that we advise something and the countries went ahead and do something different. And it's always such a challenge to monitor and monitor the fieldwork, that they've changed some team structures, they've changed some workloads in terms of the areas to be covered. And that's an issue that we always have a challenge in the operations. And likewise for the monitoring, when we generate the errors from the dashboard or the DMS, and then we share this to the countries, and they are not actioned, they are not shared to the teams in the field. And also a challenge on the, when you are working offline, the countries, they are very easy to make changes or to defer the schedule of the trainings or the field work, because we are not in country. So it's easy for them when we start on Monday, and then comes Monday, and then they send in the request that we'll start on Wednesday. So for in country, because we are in the country, it commits the NSOs to do the training on schedule or the fieldwork on schedule. So that is a challenge as well when they defer or they do last minute changes. I think the last message that I want to share, and that is on the last point, technical support has to be done in country to ensure it is fully successful. Even though some countries have done well, we still think that we still have to be in country, especially for the training and the first few weeks of the field work, to make sure that things are flowing. Hopefully the border will open up soon, and we will be able to provide the TAs in country. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Toga. Now I'm just conscious I'm in the happy situation of having been overwhelmed by participation and conscious that we've got a couple of guests who are well placed to give us some sort of overview, looking ahead sort of material. So Scott and Alison, I'm sorry, but I might just skip to getting Afsane and Gloria to give their contributions, since they've can offer a bit of a wider some useful perspective, and I'm just conscious that now I have to manage the time a little more explicitly, since we do all need to go at 1/2 the hour. Afsane, I'd be very grateful if you would make your contribution now, please.
Thank you very much, Vince, and hello, and thank you for the opportunities. Actually, I'm here with my colleague, Mr. Stein Wickham, and it's a pleasure for us to give a brief presentation on the use of admin data in censuses. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, can. Thank you.
And is it in the full?
It's not. Yes, it is now. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so the presentation today is about tapping into admin data in census taking, which is an emerging trend in Asia and the Pacific. And to begin, I'd like to provide a quick overview of census taking methods around the world, as well as in Asia and the Pacific. The graphs you see here are based on the results of the UNSC survey on population census plans for 2020 round, which was conducted in July and August 2019. Pacific region here includes Australia and New Zealand, and is shown by blue bars. The graph on the left shows that the majority of countries continue to conduct traditional censuses, which includes full enumeration using either paper or electronic questionnaire. The percentage in Asia and the Pacific is higher than the global figure. In the graph in the middle of the page, you see the CAPI method is used by the majority of countries worldwide, as well as in Asia, while the majority of countries in Pacific still use face-to-face interviews with paper questionnaire. Online, I just wonder if the list of participants have blocked the slides. Can you see the slides?
Well, I can see the slides, yeah.
All right, because on my page, it is blocked. All right. So in the graph in the middle of the page, you see that CAPI method is used by the majority of countries in the world, but in the Pacific, still PAPI method is the method which is used mostly. Online questionnaires are becoming increasingly popular in Asian countries. The graph on the right shows that many countries are considering to collect geographic coordinates that we also heard from colleagues today as well. These coordinates can be either for enumeration areas or for building and housing units. Still, over 1/3 of Pacific countries have no plan to collect coordinates. This is something that might be considered, because collecting geographic coordinates can help in the creation of an address register, which is the foundation for register-based censuses. The main potential benefits of using admin data in census taking are shown here. The use of admin data can help to reduce costs and response burden. It will improve the timeliness of census results and the coverage of some hard-to-reach subpopulations. COVID-19 pandemic has had little impact on register-based censuses, and the admin data can also help with simplifying the census operation. Though there are many strong reasons to use admin data in censuses, still not all countries are able to do so. Here are some of the most important challenges. It is necessary to have access to high quality admin data sources. There should be a legal basis that supports using and accessing admin data for statistical purposes. Even if a legal framework is in place, mechanisms for collaboration with data providers are needed. In some countries, the general public is not supportive because of privacy concerns, and the use of admin data requires human resources with a diverse set of skills. Also, since admin data is not originally created for statistical purposes, lack of interoperability in terms of differences in concepts, definitions, coverage, classification, reference period is a serious challenge. Additionally, specific data sources are required. A population register is a central register in which a core set of variables for each individual in a country is kept up to date. Other relevant data sources, as mentioned earlier, include georeference address or dwelling register, as well as complementary sources on health, education, employment, etc. The availability of a unique identification number can greatly simplify the work. Admin data can support the census in different ways. The ultimate is a fully register-based census in which no field operation is needed and all required data can be obtained from high-quality admin data sources, like the case in Scandinavian countries. A combined census is the one that combines admin data with either a sample survey or a full enumeration. When a core set of variables is available from admin data, a country may choose to conduct a sample survey, which will reduce census costs significantly. Otherwise, the country may choose to combine admin data with full enumeration. In this case, some high quality core variables are obtained from admin data sources and the rest are gathered through enumeration. Countries using the combined method may use available admin data to support census operations, such as listing, creating enumeration areas, pre-filling online questionnaires, dealing with a census non-response, improving the quality of some variables, and so on. The graph here shows that the majority countries in Asia and Pacific conduct traditional censuses, with 18% conducting combined censuses, either with full enumeration or sample survey. To learn more about how to use admin data in censuses, there are resources that here are some of the important resources available. SCAP's most recent publications are displayed at the top of the page. The report on emerging trends in census approaches looks into how countries in Asia and Pacific are exploring the use of admin data in their censuses and includes case studies. The stats brief is a concise summary of this report, and a blog will be also published in late April. I encourage you take a look, and the slides I have already shared with Mike, and each photo has the hyperlink to the documents. And here is a list of some SCAP relevant knowledge products and events. I also like to invite you to see them. The link at the bottom is the link to the Data Integration Community of Practice, which is a forum for sharing knowledge and experience on data integration. It includes an online platform and regular meetings. And in the meetings, over 10 countries' experiences relevant to census have been shared and discussed. And the online forum also includes a page through which you can access the content related to register-based censuses. And if you are interested in joining the Data Integration Community of Practice, you can click on the link, and I can also share the link in the chat box later. And finally, the takeaways, that there are valuable resources available, and it is also advisable to review country experiences. Admin data can be used in different ways to improve the quality and efficiency of a traditional census. Even if the admin data that a country holds is not of sufficient quality, it is still may be useful. So it's good to explore ways to benefit from the available data sources. And the transition to a fully register-based census is a medium to long-term process, and steps should be taken with caution to minimize any disruption in census results. So that's all from our side, and I stop here. Back to you, Vince.
Thank you, Afseen. I do appreciate it. And I do know that some of my colleagues have really enjoyed participating in the stats cafes that were on your list. What I'm aware of is that, so Gloria, your topic seems very related, the registers. So what I think we might do is, if you give your presentation to now, then we might stop and see if there are questions for Gloria and Afsane together, and then we'll see how much time we have, given that we're going to finish at 12:30. So Gloria, do you want to make your contribution now, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope you can hear me clearly.
Can hear you clearly, yes.
Thank you. I'm joining you from Nairobi, which is very early in the morning.
Oh.
And let me, thank you. I feel greatly honored to be joining you today at the meeting of the Pacific Statistics Methods Board, and to contribute to this discussion that you're having on the challenges of running a census during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is a topical issue among statisticians all around the world today. And in my intervention, I would like to reflect on the case of promoting the use of administrative data in census programs of Pacific Island countries, and specifically focusing on population registers. So I will speak to three key areas. The first being the future of population and housing censuses in the world, and some key drivers of change. Then I'll look into the case of the Pacific in moving towards increased use of administrative data, and then I'll conclude with some recommendations. To speak to the first topic about the future of population and housing censuses around the world, and basically building on what Afsane has presented, the global trajectory of population and housing censuses points towards a gradual shift from the traditional census methods to the increased use of administrative data sets. And I think Afsane has alluded to a survey by the UNSD in 2021 looking into country practices on adopting traditional methods of the census, and we see there was a drop from 85% in use of the traditional method for the 2010 round of censuses to 71% in the 2020 round of censuses, which reflects an increased adoption of alternative approaches. And these are mainly fully register-based and combined approaches. So this shift is expected to be augmented by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has brought many challenges to countries in terms of administering the census. What we also see is that the change is largely accounted for by countries in the European region, but it broadly underlines the need to critically reflect on the future of census methods in the Pacific. It is important that the Pacific region is not left behind in adopting important advances along with other countries of the world. The second point that I would like to speak to is what we call the United Nations Program on Legal Identity, which was launched in 2019, which is another important driver of increased use of admin registers in governance processes, including in the administration of the census. And what we see under this program is the UN very strongly advocating for countries to implement integrated civil registration, vital statistics, and national ID systems, including establishing population registers. Afsane has spoken to us about how critical population registers are as a foundational register for implementing register-based census methods. So what we're seeing here is that countries around the world, including the Pacific, are gradually should, if they accommodate these UN recommendations, are gradually moving towards establishing population registers. And then there are, of course, the advantages basically of admin data sources of reducing cost of the census, improving the quality, and providing more frequent information, especially in the SDG era. So I will turn to the case of the Pacific and looking at the state of admin registers and say that we all are aware probably that all countries have an established civil registration systems, though with varying levels of completeness in terms of birth and death registration. In as much as some countries are not performing well in this area, quite a number of countries have achieved credible levels of completeness, which will provide a good foundation to start thinking about POP registers. Another critical thing is that Pacific countries are increasingly implementing national ID systems. And so far, we have at least 8 countries that have legislation on national ID programs and or a functional ID database that issues credible identification credentials. And this is another foundation for this work. And then we cannot ignore countries like Samoa, which in past engagements have alluded to progress in advancing the population register discussion and in a very practical way. And the need to ensure that a case study like Samoa is very well documented so that it can promote learning within the region and even outside. So to date, to the best of my knowledge, no Pacific country has completed efforts for establishing a population register. In 2021, SPC, with the support of Stats New Zealand and other partners, initiated a project with the government of Tuvalu, but these efforts were interrupted, so we did not achieve as much as we would have wanted, though we did achieve to develop a project initiation document, which laid out a roadmap for development of population, statistical population register in Tuvalu. We had some documentation to initiate inventory of relevant laws, to map out existing registers, and to initiate looking at the quality of completeness of registers of birth, death, and migration. So as I mentioned, these efforts were interrupted and this work was not completed as would have been desired. So moving down now to my recommendations and looking at some of the lessons we've learned today, is that it's crucial that the Pacific Statistics Strategy on censuses prepares the region for the future, including ensuring that there's adequate resource allocation to allow for experimentation and testing of methods. A second thing is that when we talk about administrative data, we always think about data quality being a major concern. And I think in this direction, we need to give allowance to understand what is poor about our data, what is the quality dimension that is poor, and to put in place mechanisms to facilitate monitoring of that quality so that we know that whether the interventions in place are relevant. And then the third thing is about digital registration systems, which is a big challenge within the region. And I would say that it is recommended that partners, including SPC, strengthen investments in digital systems, especially for civil registration systems, to make sure that these are robust enough to be able to share data when needed and to interlink with other relevant platforms. For the census, I've seen from Tonga's presentation, it could be a bit easier in this, in terms of the adoption of technology. Well, for identity systems, there are different platforms in the market. There's no one standard platform, and there are challenges to everyone fears to invest in a particular platform if it's not secure. And I think this is some area that can be opened up to how do we address this challenge, preferably standardizing our recommendations to countries. And then, of course, to implement administrative registers or to implement register-based surveys, we really need to strengthen interinstitutional collaboration. And here we see a very big role to be played by the national strategies for statistical development. Then lastly, I would give an experience or a lesson learned from a series of webinars that we did on this topic, on the use, on population registers particularly. And what we learned is that what we observed is that quite a number of countries that have well-functioning population registers did this many years ago. When you talk about the Norways, the Swedish country, Sweden, and those Nordic countries, they did this a long time ago and over many years. So when you ask them the question, how can we begin? Most of the people sitting with you cannot answer that question. They don't know the story from point zero. And here I think the Pacific, with all its advantages, provides a great place to begin from and to share this knowledge in other parts of the world. In the African region, I think we're grappling with the same question of how do we begin? What's the point zero, So I'm looking forward to seeing and learning from the region in this endeavor. And I'll conclude by posting the recently released UN handbook on register-based population and housing censuses, which Afsane has also spoken to. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Gloria, and thank you very much for getting up so early in the morning. That's very much appreciated. We've got time for any quick questions or reflections on what Gloria and Afsane have presented to us. Clearly, they've made a lot of resources available to us. So there's a lot of, and I can see in the chat there's a question from Palau, I think. Gloria, has this been done in Nairobi? And how well is it being used? Gloria, do you want to? Is the other local experience you're drawing on?
Certainly not. We haven't done this in Kenya. So I think I'm basically speaking from my dreams in the Pacific and bringing them to the African region.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, no, Samoa, please. You're poster children. You're a model of best behavior.
Well, thanks, Vincent. And ideally, we totally agree with the idea of having this administrative data supplement or complement the data that are being collected. Unfortunately, there are a lot of challenges that hinders the progress of these developments. For now, we're currently working to develop a digital sort of ID, which can enable other services to be efficient, and also that would enable the population register. We're still working on a legislation, and there's so much work that ought to be done. But our experience with the, as our friend who has just presented, it takes a lot of years to develop things, especially with our experience with the business admin data that we work on national accounts. It takes so many years to develop, and it would, we understand that it really benefits. But it's just that while we talk about it, it seems to be a very simple sort of process, but a lot of challenges ought to be done. And one of the strategy in our new statistics strategy that is in draft form is to review the legislation, because we have tried so many times to do some MOUs, memorandum of understandings with government agencies, but you know, there are legislations that hinders that progress, and I think it's something that we have to push through to enable that, and that's only through the Statistics Act. If we could insert that in there, then I think that would enable things. And it's a very important idea, but you know how to get there is quite challenging, and I think it's. But you know, from a statistics perspective, we shouldn't give up ourselves in that, knowing that it would benefit everyone and all and everyone. So that's Vincent.
Thank you. I think that's a very wise intervention to make it clear that this is more than just persuading people it's a good idea. Your comments resonate very strongly with me. In New Zealand, we received permission in a cabinet paper in 2015 to explore this direction. And to be honest, we are still making our way towards a solution. There's a lot of issues of public acceptance and negotiating your way around the attitudes of other government agencies. Are there any other quick comments from anybody on the presentations that we had from Gloria and Afsane? Apologies. Pierre, please.
Yeah, I was part of the workshop that I attended, which Gloria facilitated along with Stats New Zealand. We posted our interest there, and also proposed it to our government of the day. A lot of things have changed, and I think just to cast a reflection on back then, I think there was not the issue of COVID. So a lot of things may have changed now. I think the environment may have changed some more, maybe forced some ethical issues on some people or cultural values that you know, may need to change from the public. Religious values will need to be challenged as well, especially if you're going to ID everybody through probably a barcode system or whatever they're doing in Australia, through their phones or whatever. Those are the kind of challenges that we have to face. We as small countries have to face, you know, individually, I suppose, when we need to address our legislation, the institution of freedom, and all that kind of stuff. So I think we have a lot of challenge ahead of us, but I do believe that COVID-19 may be a blessing to some, may be a curse to others, but it has certainly put this issue of having a generated ID that collects everything from where you live, geolocated, where you are geolocated, down to every part of your history since you were born, and your health history, education, whatever. I think it might make our job a little bit more easier if that was all put under one powerful database. But then we have to, as the methods board, we have to really have that discussion on the security issues. That's what I have to add.
Thank you, Pierre. Yep, there's certainly trade-offs. Look,